everybody and welcome on today's video. It's a little bit strange. 10 minutes ago I finished a video about a fusion privet bonsai, and therefore I used a whole lot of cuttings, but I had too much cuttings in my pot, and I'm not intending to do 500 of these privet fusion cutting projects, but I want to make a forest with the rest of the cuttings that are now happily sitting in a little bucket of water, and therefore I will use a mica tray that I had sitting for a couple of years and did nothing with it. And I have a few sandstones here that I just positioned here in the tray. So I want to show you why I positioned them like this. So making a convincing landscape is not that easy, and I'm not pretending that this is going to be great, but one thing that might be interesting to look at is that this rock is blocking this rock for a part, and it creates the a visual interest. Then we have a high rock here and two smaller ones here. Now of course everything needs to be raised up a little because there's still no substrate in this tray. So this is how it looks from well, a little more bird's eye view, and yeah, now I need to put some substrate. I will raise all the rocks, and that's of course not very interesting to watch, so I'll be back when that is done. So that's a quick one. Let's proceed. So you maybe saw the previous video about the privet fusion, and then you saw of course that these little privets have roots all over the place, so you don't need these. But what they also do, well, privets do that, they make a perfect radial root spread at the base of every cutting, so that's one. And all the roots that you don't need, like this one at the top, etc., they can be removed, and that's of course also a very boring thing to watch, so I'm going to spare you this. But of course it's something that needs to be done, because I think a lot of people make forests with trees they don't like, or the defectuous trees, and I think it's a little bit of a shame, because a nice forest, trees in a forest should also have good radial root spread. If you take a walk in the forest, you'll see what I mean. If you are just in your garden reading books about bonsai, you will not understand what I mean. So I'll be back when that's done too. So I have 12 of these cuttings now, and they're all dead straight, and well, it doesn't matter at all, because we'll probably cut back a whole of them. And the only thing that I'm just worrying about, well, I'm not worrying, but it's the thickness, because, well, I want the thickest trees to be in the front. If I can do something about the front view, like for example this is a new shoot, so you want to hide the cut a little, I'll do so. And I'm going to put this one here on a little mountain, like so. And of course, you know, everyone knows, if you have ever planted a forest, this will fall over a whole lot of times. So I'm just taking a little bit of wet soil here, So it's already falling. Yep. Like so. So every little tree has to be secured just a little. And yeah, it's buried too deep, but there's a reason. I'll explain that in a couple of minutes. But some weight on it will help. So, this is also a quite big tree. I'm going to position that here. Why not? Maybe just lean it against this rock might be fun. Still not holding, so a little bit of wet substrate is helping. Why is it helping? Well, because it's a whole lot heavier. That's easy to understand, that your wet substrate is heavier than your dry substrate, so that might do the trick. Yeah, so as you see, this is thinner, but it's higher. Now, because this is a deciduous forest, the height is not that important, because you can always cut back to any point that you want. Yeah, I'm now going to start with the very small trees, because I want them in the back. So a small one here. Okay. Falling. Wet stuff. Okay. So that's 3. This one has a little side to it. I wonder if I think it would be better somewhere here, growing to the outside. So I'm going to do that. And a little bit of wet stuff. Okay, that's 4 trees. This one, nice root base. I'm going to put that very close to this one, but slightly on the side. So that you can see the 2 trunks. Then small one here in the back, a little bit hidden. And I'll add some substrate from all sides. That should do the trick. Okay, kind of like that. Small one, but rather thick. So I'll put that one between these 2 rocks. No, the root base is really good here, so I'm going to try to make this a little more visible. So I'll put that one here and a smaller one here. Yeah. So maybe I can cover them with substrate oil once. Okay. There's a rather thick one that I can put right here in the front. So first I'll mount a little bit. Spread the roots. And then I'll cover them. Okay. It's going to fall over. Always does. And then, well, this one is really too high. That's going to be complicated to I'm thinking here, but it's rather thin, so maybe in the back here. Every time I see someone starting a forest planting, I know this is going to be one mess of a video, because it's always falling. Whatever you do, you make a fool of yourself. But hey, it's part of the game. All right. And then we have room for one more over here. So that's of course something that you need to take care of a little bit. You want you don't want all your trees in a row and just looking very regular. You want it to be a little bit wild, because otherwise it's not really natural looking. And then the last one I'm going to put right here. Now I'm going to shut down the camera because I need to plant everything now. I'm going to lift the trees and lift the rocks and rearrange everything slightly. So what you have to do now is put a whole lot of substrate on top of the trees and lift the trees and work your soil in. And that way it's gonna hold, hopefully. But since I planted a few rocks, I also need to lift the rocks a little, like so. This is too high. It's still falling over, but once that the soil is worked in, it's going to be a whole lot better. So, lifting this one. That's why you don't want to have the surface of your soil in the beginning too high, because you need to work the soil in while you're pulling the trees a little bit out, so that the roots are doing this instead of doing that, you know. So most of the trees are now well planted, and I'm just going to add a whole lot of extra soil to be sure that this is not good. To be sure that everything is nicely covered and strong. And then this thing is going to stay here on the bench for a couple of days, because we're expecting quite some rain And that's going to be very good because it will fix the substrate in the between the trees, and all the extra substrate that I'm adding right now, sorry I'm blocking the view, but all the extra substrate will maybe get settled or fall off, which is also good. And there's way too much substrate, I know that. But in this stage, that's not really our concern. So this one is also falling, so you don't want that. So let's fix him with some extra substrate. Another thing you can do is add a whole lot of moss. That will also keep everything nicely in position. But this is a way to get your trees well fixed, and everything you can work in will of course add to the solidity of your work. Now, it is very obvious that this is just a bunch of young cuttings in a big tray. These are sticks, and they will require a whole lot of growing to become attractive. But what you need to understand here is that these are privets, and well, they grow wild, and you can cut them back a whole lot and they'll grow side branches rather easily, and it will make for a nice, almost free forest in a few years. And the fun thing is you can always add a whole lot of cuttings from the cuttings that you make when you prune this. But what I like about this at this very moment is that it is a whole lot of straight trees. I think in a forest you have a lot of straight trees. And this concludes the creation of this little forest. It took half an hour to do that, and well, I think it looks kind of okay for starters. Now it just needs to grow. Won't grow in the winter, but it will establish itself, and next spring I'll try to reduce it a little more, starting with the biggest tree and then reduce them in height so that the smallest trees are also the thinnest, and that will create a rather convincing forest. So that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.